Hello, my name is Monica Elliott, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Broward County, and I also serve as chair of Voter Services. This presentation is about voter registration and education with the League of Women Voters of Broward County. And the material I am giving you is current as of February 7th, 2022. There are bound to be changes in the election law coming through the legislature right now, but the information being provided in this talk is as current as possible. First, I just want to remind you that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization, which means we never endorse or oppose a candidate or a party. However, the League does advocate for voter rights and against voter suppression. This is the agenda or the outline for this presentation. I will discuss the goals of our League, what will be on the ballots in August and November 2022, an overview of the Broward Supervisor of Elections website, how the League registers voters, and the importance of educating ourselves so we can educate the voters. Our League focuses as much, if not more, on voter education as we do voter registration. But we do register new voters, and if new to Florida, we bring them up to speed on voting in Florida. We are primarily updating the registration record of those who are already registered when we are out and about at the various festivals and events. We educate the voter on the process, and we especially focus on getting out the vote, educating voters on why they should be voting. This was the current registration as of February 7th, 2022. Out of 1.9 million people in Broward County, almost 1.3 are registered. This means that over 90% of the people who can register to vote already are. Remember, 21% of that 1.9 million residents are under 18 and can't vote. And we have a large number of immigrants who are not yet citizens. So this is the breakdown of party affiliation or non-affiliation. Many people register as no party affiliates. We refer to them as NPAs, but then don't realize that they won't be able to vote in primary elections. These are the races that will be on the ballot on August 23rd. This is often referred to as the primary election, but there really are two parts. The first part is a partisan primary ballot, where the parties select their candidates for the November general election. This year, all the U.S. House, State Senate, and State House seats will be up for re-election because of redistricting. County commission districts have changed also, and I'll show you the new map in a moment. And the reason District 9 is listed as only being a 2-year term is because the seat Mr. Holness resigned from to run for Congressional District 20, and it will be up for election again in 2024. Florida is a closed primary state. So you must be registered as a Democrat or Republican in order to vote in the primary election. But there is an exception to the rule. If there are no candidates, including no write-in candidates in the opposing party primary, then the race becomes a universal primary and everyone can vote. So we have some concepts that may be foreign to people who are moving from other states, because Florida is only one of 12 states who has this closed primary system. And so we really need to educate those voters. The second part of the ballot deals with non-partisan elections. And this includes circuit and county court judges and the school board. Everyone can vote in these races. And this is what confuses people. They hear it's a primary election, but don't realize that part of the ballot permits everyone to vote. So the reason that school board seat 5 will only be for a 2-year term is similar to what's happening with county commission seat 9. Dr. Osgood has to resign from her seat to run for Senate seat 33. This is what will be on the November 8th ballot, and this is where everyone can vote. We have the governor, the Senate, US House, all the Senate and House seats in the Florida legislature and the county commission, those that we mentioned that will probably be in the primary election. But we'll also have the runoff between the school board and perhaps judicial candidates if none of those candidates in their individual races wins by more than 50%. We will also see on the November ballot the special districts for soil and water conservation districts and for the drainage districts. You will also have the various community development districts. Those are usually in the western part of the county. Now, the other thing that we're going to be doing in November is that we will be voting for retention of 5 of the Florida Supreme Court justices and for 7 of the judges on the 4th District Court of Appeal. This is simply a vote yes or no to retain them. And there will be amendments for the state constitution and also for the Broward County charter, but we don't know which ones will be on the ballot at this point. So we did redistricting maps already for the Broward County Commission. This was it's already complete, but there were some major changes that I'll show you in just a minute. The Broward County School Board also did some redistricting, and that's complete, but there's very minimal changes. You probably won't even notice it. For the US House of Representatives, this is still in the process of being drawn, and it must be approved by the governor. When it comes to the Florida State Senate and Florida State House redistricting maps, they have been completed by those legislative bodies, and they are currently in review by the Florida Supreme Court. If the court approves, the new maps are completed. But what we don't know is, will there be any lawsuits, perhaps by the Fair District Coalition, of which the League is a member. So we may not know what districts we will be voting in for maybe a couple more months. This is the new Broward County Commission district map. This is one that we'll be using for voting on November 8th. So the districts on the ballot in 2022 are going to be the even year seats, and those will be for a 4-year term. And then Commission District 9 will be for only a 2-year term. And then it's going to show up on the ballot again in 2024 when all of the odd numbered districts will be on the ballot. So voter education, it starts with you. You need to be sure that you have educated yourself so that you can educate the voters. When the League, when we're out there doing voter registration and education, that's what we're there to do, is we're there to answer the questions that the voters might have. And also, I'm sure that your neighbors ask you questions, your relatives, your friends, and by knowing as much as possible about the voting process, you can provide them with that information, and then they may be passing it on also. So you need to be sure that you're providing the correct information. I really want you to know what is on the Broward County Supervisor of Elections website. Everything is there. It really is. Sometimes you have to search a little bit, but it is there. They do have a new website address. It's browardvotes.gov. So the most important button on the website is My Voter Status over on the left-hand side of the screen. That is where people should go to find out what is in the voter registration record and determine in their voter registration record and determine if updates are needed. Now, on the upper right-hand corner, I've got the red square box that is encompassing language. If English is not the language they prefer to use, you can use that button to find either Spanish, Haitian Creole, or Portuguese. And that would allow them to better understand what is actually on the website. People really need to be checking their voter registration record to make sure that there are no errors that are introduced. And nice to do it at least once a month. That's probably a little bit too much, but they do need to be checking this, especially in regards to their address and also party affiliation. After you insert the required information shown here on the screen, the next screen is going to look like this. On the left side is your voter information. This tells us the person is eligible to vote in the county and that they have a vote by mail request that is valid through the end of 2022. And this is important information for those people who have voted previously and used the vote by mail ballot. It also tells you their party affiliation and the precinct where they would vote in person. On the right-hand side is contact information. The address where you live or the residential address is shown. And the address where the SOE should mail information to you, as well as your vote by mail ballot is there if requested. So the residence and the mailing addresses don't have to be the same. They can be the same or they can be different. And if you want to change this information, you're going to click on the request address change. The mailing address is where you receive your mail, and that can be out of state for college students, snowbirds, or whatever the reason might be, maybe even a temporary job change. Note that you can use a post office box for a mailing address, but not for your residential address. And this is just illustrating again that, sorry about this, that the mailing address is going to be where you receive your mail, and it can even be out of state, even if it's just temporarily. And you can use a post office box for the mailing address, but not for the residential address. In this next slide, we're showing that if you need to change your party affiliation or the county where you live, perhaps you just moved to county, you can, essentially what you're doing is you're logging in or you're going to the registertovoteflorida.gov because you're essentially re-registering. When you go to this site, if you're already in the system, most of it is going to auto-populate and you're just changing and updating the information that is requested. So if you're doing online registration, voter registration, you do need your Florida driver's license or your Florida ID, plus you're going to need the last 4 digits of your social security number. And this is strictly for security purposes. The advantage of registering online is that the signature on your Florida driver's license or your Florida ID becomes your signature of record for voting. So when you need to sign the security envelope for your vote by mail ballot or to sign in to vote in person, all you have to do is look at your driver's license or ID and you know what your signature should look like. This is the last screen that you see when you're registering online. This is what ties your voter registration with your driver's license or Florida ID. So just to reiterate, if you are doing your voter registration online, you have to have your Florida driver's license or ID and the last 4 digits of your social security number. And the signature of record for your voter registration will be the same as on your driver's license or ID. And this is why we highly encourage people to register to vote online. If you are using the paper form, you have a choice of the Florida driver's license or ID, or if you don't have those, you can use just the last 4 digits of your social security number. The signature of record is technically how you sign that paper form. And so we would suggest that people take a photo of their signature. Continuing with what is on the SOE website, browardvotes.gov, you can also sign up for ballot tracks. And this is the new system for tracking your vote by mail ballot. You will receive a notification when the ballot is printed, when it's mailed to you, received at the SOE office when you mail it back, and when it's accepted. And that means there's been no problem with your ballot. So it gives you the opportunity, it will tell you, they will contact you via email, a text, or a phone call, whichever you decide to use. And it will contact you then 4 times during that whole process. Moving on to what is required if you're registering voters with the League of Women Voters. You need to be a member of the League, and you have to be certified by taking the League's quiz. You are working on behalf of the League at these events that are sanctioned or approved by the League. We always try to work with 2 people together, either at the table or if we're walking about. And please, of course, don't wear anything partisan. Either wear a League t-shirt or polo shirt or something patriotic looking, red, white, and blue attire. You have probably heard about SB 90, the law that was passed by the 2021 legislature that has affected voting and how we register people to vote in Florida. The League is a third-party voter registration organization, referred to as a 3PVRO. The new law only applies if the 3PVRO is using a single-page paper voter registration application. As long as LWV Broward members do not collect a paper vote registration form, the portion of the law pertaining to 3PVROs does not apply. We are fortunate that here in Broward County, we have a very progressive supervisor election in Joe Scott. And so he's actually developed a trifold brochure, and that is what our league will use at our events where we might be registering voters. However, we still encourage people to register to vote online. We can help them fill out the form online, answer any questions they have, ask them to be sure they review the information they have input before they hit the submit button. And then again, that signature will be tied to their Florida driver's license or Florida ID. So what's in this trifold brochure? Well, it includes the voter registration form, the vote by mail ballot request form. You can sign up for ballot tracts, and it's already prepaid postage and addressed to the Broward SOE. One thing I want to emphasize, we can only use these trifold brochures for Broward County residents, but we will have the means to register people who do not live in Broward County when you're at an event sanctioned by the league. Again, our league never takes possession of the completed brochure. It is up to the voter to mail the brochure to the supervisor of election. And again, it's prepaid and pre-addressed. So we will have at our table this flow chart for the trifold brochures. And so you don't need to memorize this or anything. It's all going to be there in a laminated, it's laminated piece of paper. So this is your voter registration form, same as we've been using since 2013. And you use this form whether it's a new voter registering or if somebody is updating the voter registration. Like before, you have to fill in those boxes, those lines that are outlined here in black, lines 1 through 7, and then also line 12, which is your signature and date. Again, we emphasize you're using either your Florida driver's license or Florida ID. If they don't have either one of those, then they can use the last 4 digits of their social security number. One of the problems we often run into is people think that after city is going to come country. And in fact, that word is county, and we're in Broward County. And then we highly suggest that people select a party affiliation. And this is where you want to take the opportunity to inform the voter that Florida is a closed primary state. And then be sure that they sign it and that they date it. And we suggest that they take a photo so that they know how they have signed it, because this is the signature they should be using when they sign up to vote in person, either early voting or election day, or the signature that they're going to use for a vote by mail ballot. We will also have at the table tips for completing the Florida voter registration. Just to give you some information about returning citizens, felons who were not convicted of a murder or sexual offense, they can register to vote, but they have to have completed their sentence. They don't have to show us proof that they've completed their sentence. It's something that they need to know. And if they don't know if their sentence is completed, then they should not register to vote until they do know. And we will have information at the table in terms of how they can obtain assistance, either from the Florida League at Can I Vote at LWVFL.org or through the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. The next part of this trifold brochure is the request for a vote by mail ballot. Again, you're going to have to include your name, date of birth. You need one of the three numbers, either your Florida driver's license or Florida ID. And if you don't have either of those, then you need the last four digits of your Social Security number. Again, they're asking, where you want to have your ballot mailed to. And make sure the voter understands that vote by mail ballots cannot be forwarded. So you need to be sure that the address that you want that vote by mail ballot mailed to is correct in the system. This is also where you will sign up for the new ballot track program. You don't have to select all three means of obtaining that information for each step of the process. It can either be text, email, or a phone call. This is also where they can change their party affiliation. Again, take this opportunity to inform them about the closed primary system. And then they have to sign and date. Then all they have to do is fold it up, seal it up as instructed, and mail it. But the voter mails the form, not the league. And then what you want to do is inform them that it will probably take up to 2 weeks after the SOE receives this trifold brochure before they receive their voter information card. If they haven't received it within that 2-week time period, then they should either call the SOE office or they should look at the SOE website and check my voter status to see if it has gone through and they just simply have not received it in the mail. Just about every voter in Broward County is going to receive a new voter information card for the August and November election, and that is due to the redistricting. And don't be the least bit surprised if the precinct that you vote at changes also, because the redistricting process is going to force some changes in the precinct lines also. You don't need a voter information card to vote. It is not an official identification for voting, but it does tell you your precinct. Most of the time people lose this card. And so if they want to find their precinct, again, all you have to do is go to the SOE website. So some people would prefer to do all this online. They don't want to have to deal with paper, and that's okay. And I would actually encourage them to do so, because that way it's automatic. You don't have to worry about things getting lost or getting messed up in the mail. So there is a QR code, that funny little thing in the upper right-hand corner. And the kids all know, and the younger generations, they all know what to do with this. You're taking your phone and the camera portion of your phone, putting it up to the QR code, and it takes you to a specific web page on the SOE website. And this is what it looks like in English. You can either register to vote, or you can click to do a vote by mail request, or to get the status notifications, which is your ballot tracks. As before, you can change the language, and it can be presented to you either in Spanish or Haitian Creole. We also, in addition to pushing the SOE website, we want to push our league's website. We have a lot of information there. If you go to the voter information tab, we have FAQs, frequently asked questions about voter registration, vote by mail, early voting, and election day voting. We've kind of taken information from across the state, various other local leagues, what it may be on the SOE website, and put them into a question and answer format that's easy for people to view. And this is where you should be going for information also. So what are some of the other things that you might need to know? One, students can pre-register on or after their 16th birthday. They simply can't vote until they're 18. And the Broward County SOE office, they do go into the high schools, and they do a great job of getting students either pre-registered after their 16th birthday, or if they're already 18. The main thing people need to know is this 29-day rule. You have to be registered to vote 29 days prior to an election. If it's a primary election, you've got a partisan party election, they have to have selected a party 29 days prior to the election. You can change parties as many times as you want, but you have to decide on a party 29 days in advance of that primary election. They can change their address, residential mailing. They can do that up to and on the day of election. But you need to be very careful with this if you're requesting a vote by mail on ballot. So what are some of the issues that we run into with vote by mail? Because that seems to be the primary way people like to vote in the county. One of the primary issue is not signing the outside of the envelope, which contains the voted ballot, or signing the wrong envelope. Spouses may switch their ballots once it gets into the house. Well, if you look at the outside of the envelope, your name is actually there. It's in small print, but it actually is on the outside of the envelope. The other reason that vote by mail ballots may not get counted is because they're not mailed in time. That ballot has to be received, not postmarked, by 7 p.m. election day at the SOE office. So our recommendation is that the ballot should be mailed 10 days prior to the election. If they can't mail it any sooner than that, then they need to consider dropping it off at the drop-off sites. So one of the things that our election supervisor has done is he's established 5 new permanent satellite offices. These are staffed with SOE employees, usually only 1 day a week, and they have limited hours. But as we prepare for elections, these become extended drop-off sites for vote by mail ballots. And this will be especially useful on election day and on that Monday before election day, as these sites will be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for people to drop off their vote by mail ballots. So if you didn't know where the SOE offices were located, the main office is downtown at the Governmental Center in Fort Lauderdale. The Equipment Center is in the Lauderhill office, which is on the back side of the Lauderhill Mall. And then these are the locations of the permanent satellite offices: Tamarack, Miramar Library, the Pat Larkins Community Center in Pompano Beach, the Northwest Regional Library in Coral Springs, and the Southwest Regional Library in Pembroke Pines. For early voting, the sites will get listed on the SOE website at least 30 days before the election, usually more. There's probably going to be some changes to the early voting sites from what we've had before. Not not very many, but there will be a few. Normally, we can start early voting at least 10 days before the election day, sometimes sooner. And the thing we need to be sure that a voter understands is that during early voting, they can go to any of the early voting sites, whatever's closest to where they live, closest to where they work, closest to where the babysitter is, whatever it might be. But they can vote at any early voting site. But they do need an acceptable identification. On election day, they need to understand they have to vote at your precinct. And what people often get mixed up about is they think they can take their vote by mail ballot to the precinct and drop it off in a drop-off box at the precinct. And that is not the case. You're doing in-person voting at your precinct. That information is on the voter information card, or you can go to the SOE website and click on Find My Precinct. For both early voting or election day, you have to have the appropriate identification. And this is a list of the IDs that are acceptable for voting here in Florida. You need to have an ID that has a signature and a photo, and they don't have to be on the same card. That's the ideal situation. That's why we like the Florida driver's license or the Florida state ID. If you don't have an ID with both of them on the same card, then what you need is a photo ID and then another ID that has your signature. So it can be two separate cards. What we will have available at our table is the business card of this nonprofit organization called Vote Writers. You can reach out to them and they will help you obtain ID. They may even help you help with the paying of getting a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, etc., if you're qualified. One thing, just so you that are aware, the address on the ID does not have to match the residential address. That ID is simply being used by the poll worker to confirm who the voter is. Now, another part of our voter education is convincing people to vote. I mean, we have over 90% of the people who can register to vote registered in Broward County, but they don't all vote. And we're trying to convince them that it is worth their while to take the time to vote. One of the ways we're doing this is by pointing out all the government services that they receive. And they need to understand that if elected officials are the ones who decide whether to provide or eliminate these services, increase or reduce the funding, or make it easier or harder to sign up for these services. And this is housing, healthcare, jobs, schools, the courts, everything. And it doesn't matter the level of the government, whether it's federal, state, or local. Elected officials are making these decisions. Then the other part, and we have this poster at our table, and the bottom half of this poster is another good indication to demonstrate to people why their vote is so important. And you can especially show them the Broward County, and these are both just for Broward County, the voter turnout in 2018, which was our last gubernatorial election. We've listed here the number of registered voters at that time, the number who voted, and the number not voting in that election. And then you look at that square below it, the vote difference statewide between candidates for governor in 2018 was just under 32,500 votes. The number not voting in Broward County alone was just over 450,000. So you can see how in a very close election, who votes and who doesn't can determine the outcome. We always knew that, but this really shows you in stark numbers. And then this is the voter turnout that we had in 2020. This is just a demonstration of all the different types of materials that we have available at our league table. Over on the far left is the poster that we have a pull-up banner so that people can see this and you can point out the information I've just given you. We have our checklist for 2022. We already have it printed in English and Spanish, and we're working on a Creole version right now. If people don't want paper, we've got that QR code there for people to use. We've got another card, a rack card. They're about 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches. That talks about the fact Florida is a closed primary state, but that for judges and school board members, they are also on the August primary ballot, and this is a non-partisan election. We have our Speakers Bureau in terms of giving people an idea of the various topics that the league is more than happy to talk about, whether it's a homeowners association, professional group, or whatever it might be. Decision 2022, we'll have that available in June when the ballot has been finalized. Then we've got a business card that has the browardvotes.gov, the SOE's website, and as well as their phone number. And then we have the vote writers card. Other information we'll have at the table, these are what we call our advocacy rack cards. We have one for education, one on climate change for the environmental committee, expanding Medicaid, and then reproductive freedom. And on the back of those, we again are indicating the primary election date and the general election date and asking people to make sure they're registered to vote and that their voter registration is up to date. So just a couple last things. This lady, Andrea Sleeper, she is our voter registration and education coordinator. This is who is normally going to contact you when we are looking for volunteers for our events, and that is her email there. But we are now using the volunteering module of the Club Express platform. That, in other words, that is our website. When you go to our website, you do need to log in. You need to log in with your new name, password. Then you click on the event calendar and look for the date and event that you want to volunteer for. You click on the event name, then you click on volunteer button, and then you click on volunteer yourself. And that's when you select the time slot, you add in your phone number, click on next, click on finish, and this is the email confirmation that you will get. So it makes it much simpler than what we've used in the past. Before, there would be a lot of emails going back and forth, and it took a while to figure out who is going to be where on what day. This way it becomes very much computerized, but I guess it is on the computer. And have fun. We really have enjoyed time talking with the people. We've really missed the past 2 years not being able to communicate directly with the public. And it's going to be nice to be able to do this again. So I thank you for viewing this video. And if you do have any questions, be sure to contact Andrea at this email address, or myself, Monica Elliott, and my email address is melliott, MELLIOTT @ufl.edu. Thank you.